Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Geico of Mobile, the first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. This week's show is brought to us by our local Geico insurance office. Everybody knows Geico has great auto rates, but did you also know they have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft? Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Not only will Ron work hard to get you the lowest premium possible, but you'll have the service you expect and can count on if you ever need to make a claim. Geico does even more than insure your valuable items. They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your insurance. If you're an Alabama saltwater fisherman, support the local insurance agent who brings you the show each week. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-AL. I'm Butch Theory, and I'm joined today by my good buddy, my fishing buddy, my trusty co-host, Captain Richard Rutland of Cold-Blooded Fishing. How are we doing today, Captain Richard?
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. How we doing today?
Oh, man. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. Oh, man, what a weird show.
I just wish Joe Exotic was here to join us today.
You on the Tiger King train? Is that what that's all about?
Hey, well, maybe Carol Baskins will jump on here with us one day. Who knows, man? No.
I hope not. I'm not sure about that one. Oh man, I
don't know how you mix tigers and fishing, but
we can do whatever we want. It's all good. Oh man, we got a good show this week. We got a great offshore report, inshore, and Chris Vecsey has been smashing the pompano from the boat. I'm excited to hear from him. Speaking of offshore, man, you guys had quite an adventure this weekend in your old 25 contender, huh? Tell me a little bit about that.
Man, you ain't lying about that, man.
Got some fresh sashimi in the bay boat, no?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's been fun. I feel like if you were talking about tigers, I feel like a tiger. I've been just like grabbing hunks of tuna and clawing onto it with my mouth. I got it coming out of my ears, trying to give it all away. But yeah, man, we had a great trip. Was just a huge, I'd say, milestone or whatever you want to call it for myself. Ran out in the bay boat to the horseshoes and caught a real nice tuna, about 140, 150 pound fish, and we're on the rod for about 3 hours, just short of 3 hours. Had a great crew. I had my man Triple C on the wheel. Corey Quint, president of the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo this year, did a great job driving the boat, keeping me on top of the fish. I was the angler. I was the only person that could get a bite the whole time we were out there.
Imagine that.
I thought it was kind of hilarious. You know, the first bite we got, you're going to laugh. The first fish we reeled in was a beeliner. I got a beeliner, and then we broke a couple of fish off, and then finally stuck a good one. Corey did a great job driving the boat, and we had my buddy David Bryan out there who was with us. Everybody had a job. Everybody did it perfectly. Had a little help from our another crew on another boat, Gavin Busby and John Pitt. John Pitt jumped on the boat and helped us gaff the fish. We were a little light on a gaff. Well, we needed 2 gaff guys on this fish, so John Pitt. Oh yeah, John Pitt jumped on the boat and helped us out. Also wanted to give another shout out to Southern Draw, Captain Coker. He gave us a couple of blackfins, kind of about them. It was kind of a late bite, you know. They really fished. Everybody didn't start hooking up good till around like noon, 1 o'clock, something like that. I think we hooked up like about 1:30, 2 o'clock. Didn't get done fighting the fish till almost 4. Something like that, somewhere right in there. I want to give a shout out to those guys for hooking us up with a little bait.
It was slick, man. I saw some videos. It was beautiful.
Oh,
you guys must have got out there and got back pretty quick.
Oh, for sure. We averaged about like anywhere. We ran for about an hour and a half in the dark Saturday morning before the sun really came up, and we averaged about we were taking it easy. 34, 36 miles an hour. Once the sun came up, we bumped it up. We were over 40 miles an hour, 45 at some points, you know, and then got out there real early. Got a little bit bumpy while we were fishing. I'd say maybe not. The wind bumped up to maybe 12 knots or so. And then by the time we got the fish in the boat, which was, you know, several hours later, it slicked off and we got back in in a hurry.
Time to roll.
it was unbelievably slick in the Gulf on the way home. So, I mean, and that's something, a lot of people use the word crazy when they talk about what we went and did. But we paid real close attention to the weather.
Your boat's in immaculate condition.
Oh yeah, I take very good care of my boat, take very good care of my servicing and all that.
Huge deal.
Oh, for sure.
You got some other boats with you. You got some chase boats, some buddy boats.
Definitely. We're definitely in contact with several people who were leaving from the island, going back to the island. And then the other thing too, when I look at that forecast, it's not like I'll look at the forecast like the night before I'm going and, hey, it's going to be good until the next evening. I like to see it be good into the next day. So
right.
3 reports out, you always have like an evening report, tomorrow report, and tomorrow night report. And I like it to look good into 3 reports before I say, hey, I'm going to run out there in my bay boat and go, because I could tell you, and of course I haven't caught in some really bad stuff, but it wouldn't be
fun. It happens quick.
No, it wouldn't be fun traveling 80 miles in 3 to 4 foot seas in a 25-foot bay boat. That ain't how I'm going.
It wouldn't be that fun, but that 25 contender can take it, man. I tell you what, I've been with you a couple of times in 3 or 4 foot, and I've been impressed at how just tankish it is. You're in 3-foot chop running pretty good. And you're just bracing for that impact, just to slam like a regular boat, so to speak, and that thing just choom 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 runs right through it, man. They make it
It knifes right through it, man. I can't say enough about the Contender brand, to how good a piece of equipment that I get to run out of, how good they are to me, taking care of me and putting me in the position to be able to go and do things like this.
That's right.
Which is unbelievable. I hope that our relationship continues for many, many, many years, because the brand, the piece of equipment that I get to operate out of is unbelievable.
For sure. It's a Ferrari, in my opinion.
I get excited to do. I'm talking about, I go get in a boat every day. Okay, so go think about what you do for a job.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and what you have to work with, and what I get to go get in and go work in. I get excited every single time that I put that boat in the water.
Yep.
I get excited. It makes my life so easy.
Got a fine office you get to go to every day for sure.
Man, you're not lying about that.
Well, man, that's a cool thing y'all did. Congratulations on that Big Ten. Congratulations to Corey and the guys that were involved in that. That's fun, man. Let's get into this deal. Where are we headed first?
Man, I think we're going to talk to Chris Vecsey down at Orange Beach at Sam's Bait and Stop.
What'd you say, Chris? What's been going on over there in Orange Beach at the Sam's Bait and Tackle and wherever you've been fishing? I don't know. You never know what you're up to.
I'm definitely kind of a nomad. It's been going really good, actually. Obviously adjusting to the new norms around here, but, everybody's fishing. That's for sure. The fishing's been good. We had some.
No, I saw a lot, some really, really cool pictures. I'm actually excited to talk to you this week. I don't know if we're going to call this a surf report from the boat or a boat report in the surf. I'm not really sure, but I'm curious to see. Curious to hear about what you've been up to, man.
Primarily, the pompano bite has been red hot this week. It's been a full moon cycle. Water temps are perfect. Conditions have been perfect. Fish have been going on the spawn this last week. So the pompano bite's been about as fast and furious as you could expect. So I've been out on my skiff a lot, over the last few days. And at pompano bites, be hard to say there's been much of a better one before, but the numbers have been incredible. Some big fish too. I caught at least a few of them this week that were, over 4 pounds. A lot of fish in that 17 to, almost 19-inch range.
What you said is the perfect water temperature. What about is that on the beach right now?
It's still it's still kind of in the low 70s right now. So it's come up quite a bit, and, low 70-degree water, that is, you have pompano. Spanish mackerel have been about as thick as fleas. You could go out any day and catch plenty of Spanish. And then if you cobia, there's been some cobia showing up this week.
Yeah, I definitely want to ask you about that too.
I haven't been out personally looking for them just yet, but I've seen some really nice fish. There was a couple fish over 70 pounds caught this week. My buddy Miles, Tradition Charters over in Rodeo, he went 3 for 8, I believe it was, a couple days ago. So, I mean, there's fish coming down the beach. I think this next week, if we can get some decent weather, get some more eyes on the water, I think you're going to see a lot more fish being brought in.
I've been twice myself, and I'm way over on Dolphin Island, so I've just been running about kind of close to the pier or something like that. And then we had like a couple of days I had some east wind, and so I was just kind of riding that east wind back over towards the island. And I was kind of trying to hang in that like 18 to 30, 35 foot of water range, moving down. And then every once in a while, I'd kind of go across that second sandbar in close to the beach. And I was just kind of zigzagging back and forth. Of course, I'm just trying to make it up. I haven't caught a lot of fish. Is that about, I don't know, you have a tip for our listeners as far as what water depth to stay at and whatnot, what to be looking for when they get out there?
Honestly, with these migratory fish, I'd like to say that there is a preferred depth, but what you are doing is pretty much what a lot of us do. But I would say that on average, most fish are still being caught a little bit deeper. If I was going to go tomorrow, I would probably fish from about 20, 25 feet, moving all the way out to 35, 40 feet and zigzagging that little bit deeper range of depth. I know a few fish were caught this week out as far, 50, 55 feet. So some of these guys are looking a little bit further off the beach. But I think because it's still a little early in the season, too, there's not enough of a pattern established. But typically with that, these migratory fish, you almost never know. Every year you're going to see at least a couple of them landed from the surf by guys fishing for pompano and redfish. And that's because those fish, they come in, they're looking for food. They're migrating, just along the beachfront. You almost never know. So like you said, zigzag in and out from the beach and keep your eyes open and bring more people with you. That way there's that many more eyes on the boat.
Yep. We got real lucky. Well, I was by myself. I got real lucky and ended up popping two nice blackfish while I was out there too. Luckily I had a couple of live shrimp and a free line rigged up. Ended up catching two nice blackfish. So that was really neat as well. So they're definitely on the move up here as well, I think, with the laying.
I always keep a rod rig for triple tail during cobia season. Usually I just keep a DOA shrimp or something like that on there, but keeping a half a dozen to a dozen big live shrimp on hand is about the smartest thing you can do this time of year.
Chris, I'm going to have to back you up. I don't think our listeners are going to be happy with that pompano report. He's saying how hot they were. We're going to have to go a little deeper on that, I think, man. I'm also curious.
No, we jumped into the cobia thing a little. You know what I mean?
That's all right.
We kind of broke our own rhythm there.
I take full responsibility for that.
I wasn't gonna blame you, but I think we were already silently blaming you.
That's right. Yeah. So when you're fishing pompano from a boat, I assume that you are pretty much fishing the same areas that you would fish from the beach. You're angled a little different in your setup. I assume you're anchored. Just kind of walk me through it a little bit, man, because I have no idea what that looks like.
Well, there's a couple of different ways you can go about it. I've actually, believe it or not, this is going to sound stupid, but I've actually trolled from, off the beach for them before in my kayak. But usually if I'm on the skiff, I'm going to look for the same things you look for during the day, or from the beach rather. You look for cuts, you look for washouts, you look for the same things. And the nice thing about the boat is I can position myself outside one of these areas. I can work it aggressively with both artificials and natural baits if I want to. And if there isn't fish there, instead of being on the beach where I'd have to, walk around or all else fails, get my vehicle moved to another beach, in the boat, I can run the beach until I see some I like. So there's actually a lot of advantages to it. Now, this week, of course, a lot of people have been huddled up around the rocks at Perdido Pass because that outflow, both on the incoming and outgoing tides, there's been a good amount of fish there. But what we've done the last few mornings, what I've done on my skiff is, I'll fish the rocks for a little bit during that peak bite. When it starts getting real crowded out there at the rocks, or, once they're kind of, caught some decent fish there, I'll move out of that area. I'll move down the beach and I'll actually start fishing those pockets, along those troughs. And we're catching just as many fish. This week, I picked up a stowaway in Matthew Isbell. Kind of invited him on board because he was on another boat or whatever. He said, I was like, yeah, just climb on. And we fished this one pocket of beach just east of, around the East Jetty. And we ended up catching, not only did we catch a bunch of fish, throughout a couple schools of fish that moved through, but we caught fish up to, probably a little over 20 inches and, well over 4 pounds. And fishing nothing but artificial lures, keep in mind, no natural baits.
So you're seeing these fish come through. Are you And you're throwing the jigs at them. Are you have set rigs drop down while you do that?
No set rigs at all. And the thing is like the incoming tide's been mostly in the afternoon. I've only been fishing mornings, which has been a falling tide, so the water's been a little dirty. So none of this is sight fishing at the moment, or at least on that outgoing, none of it's been sight fishing. So you're just looking for those areas of water that are a little darker. There's a little bit deeper pocket there. You're looking for areas where you can actually see that current turbulence, because those are the areas that those fish are going to want to be in. And you bomb the jigs in there. Pompano, I know nobody likes to say this because I think they feel it takes something away from them, but pompano are jacks. They are a type of jack. They will eat artificial lures. And if they're there, especially in big spawning aggregates like we've been seeing, if you throw jigs in there and working fairly aggressively, you should be getting hit. And that's how it's been, for the past week and a half, is if the fish are there, you will get hit on the jigs.
Let me ask you a question on as far as working your bait back in. Or when you say working aggressively, like are you reeling it as fast as you would for a Spanish mackerel, trying to just reel it as fast as you can, or are you slowing it down and making bottom contact? Maybe walk us through that a little bit.
Well, I'll kind of refer to, I remember one time we were talking about retrieves, and we always convey what you mean when you're talking about, jig it and drop it, or, pick, pop it and let it fall, or whatever, because that's different to everybody else. And I've always gone by what I just referred to, that 1-by-1 method, one being your jigging motion, and then the other part of it being your pause in between, or your retrieve in between. And what I do for pompano is I do one hop of the rod and then just one turn of the handle, one hop of the rod, one turn of the handle. And you're moving the rod about, a foot to a foot and a half, but you're giving it a good hard pop. It's coming up, and then you're letting it drop while you pick up the slack. If you can imagine that, it's a pretty sharp, fast retrieve. There's almost no pause in between besides that one turn of the handle to pick up the slack. So it's not a straight retrieve. It's jig, 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 and you keep that jig moving pretty aggressively.
So maybe almost just a taste slower than what you'd be doing with a topwater.
Yeah, it's almost like working a topwater lure, just a little bit slower. That way you can let that jig fall, a couple feet in between. And the question I get asked the most here in the shop is, well, what about when you're in deep water? If you work it like that, your jig isn't going to get down towards the bottom. I just adjust the weight of the jig itself. That way it'll still hold depth and still keep that fast retrieve. And sure, I'll go up to jigs as heavy as 1 ounce. There's nothing wrong with going up to a pompano jig that heavy. They'll still hit it.
Sweet, man. That's a great report, man. It sounds like the daggone pompano is on fire right now.
Pompano is popping off.
Yep. Well, we were supposed to have my Pop Stomp tournament was supposed to be going on right now. And as of now, I've got it kind of in a indefinite state of postponement, but it looks like, with beaches and the way they are, it doesn't look like they're going to open by May. And if they do open by May, we'll have the tournament in May. If they don't open by May, then we'll probably have to cancel until next year.
You made me think about something. Patrick Garmison, who's a contributor on here, I think you know Patrick. Pat found, Pat's like all techie and everything. He's always finding the new greatest and latest and greatest, app or something on the internet. And he found something, man, where this app sent him a card, right? Like some type of little like credit card size deal. And you could actually run a tournament with this card, like I guess through the cloud, I guess. And you lay the fish down. You don't even need a measuring board or anything. You put this card in the picture, and you take a picture of the fish, and it measures the fish somehow in relationship to this card. And so I don't know. Maybe that's the future of what we're dealing with right now. If you got to put a tournament on, it might have to be an interactive thing. We can't show up and weigh up and see who's got the heaviest weighing fish, but at least maybe by this measure, you could see who had the biggest one, and at least put something on, make it a little interesting for somebody. Because golly, we're just running out of things to do around here. So
you definitely got to be innovative with your approach to it. And the only thing about the reason that, the problem with that, even with the pompano tournament, that we do is, like right now we're still open. Our store sells gas. We sell groceries. We're considered an essential. I could still take fish and weigh them here at the store. The problem with the Pomp Stomp, though, is beaches are closed And I'd say 90% of my participants are guys that fish from the beach that
I'm sure, yeah.
some of them might have boats, some have boats, but a lot of them don't. The idea is, well, you could still have, have it from the piers or from the boats. Well, what that does at that point, though, is it forces a participant, he has to either find a ride or he has to pay to go on the pier or whatever. And it's just, I'd rather wait until everybody has that fair chance and has,
even out the playing
has
field.
it open for everybody. Exactly.
Sure. Well, man, who knows what's going to happen with all that stuff. I'm allergic to even talking about it. So we're going to get that tip from you before we let you go. This week's onshore tip is brought to us by Fishbites. Are you tired of scrambling for bait whenever you decide to go fishing? Have an artificial bait that's better than live bait ready to go at a moment's notice with Fishbites. It's easy to pack and travel with, and it's shelf stable, and not to mention tough. With Fishbites, the bite stays on the hook and the fish stay on the bait. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits and tackle at fishbites.com. What you think for a tip this week, Chris?
Tip for this week, since we're talking about or have been talking about pompano the most, why don't we stay on that topic for the tip? Obviously, this is going to be a boat tip. Even though it's surf fishing to a degree, it's still going to be a boat tip for those fishing pompano from the boat. The easy thing, and this isn't part of the tip, but the easy thing lately has been to go to the pass, fish the rocks. But if you go out there any given morning, you're going to see that it's not that easy because there are a lot of people. By late morning, there are a lot of boats. There's kayaks. There's people on wave runners. There's all kinds of people piled in there. So if you don't have ideal positioning, it forces you to look for plan B, which is to run those beaches. And the biggest thing I could tell the biggest tip I could give somebody run those beaches is cover water efficiently. As far as when you find that rip, like we were talking about, work it and move on. If the fish aren't there, if the fish are there, you're going to find out pretty quick. Pompano are pretty active. They move pretty fast. I'll pull up on one of those little potholes or troughs on the beach. I'll work it with my jigs pretty aggressively. And if I don't get bit, I move on. Now, I've seen some people this week anchor off the beaches trying to do that same thing, but they sit there. And, you talk to these same guys later, they're, saying, well, we caught a couple of them, but they just weren't biting. It's not that they're not biting. It's you got to move, you got to cover water, and have confidence that if you hit those spots, work them aggressively with those jigs, you're going to catch fish. But covering water is more importantly than anything, and I think that's one of the reasons why I like jig fishing for pompano more than bait fishing. Is it allows me to cover water more effectively. When you put baits out, you have to just let them sit there. You can't just keep reeling them in, throwing them out, reeling them in, throwing them out. You got to sit and you got to set. And when that happens is I'm spending more time in each spot. And if the fish aren't there, you've wasted 3 times as much time as you would if you're using artificial. So I would say that's my tip, is cover water more effectively if you have to run the beaches looking for them. They're very active right now. They're very aggressive, jig style, jig brand. I've been using a couple different jigs this week. I'm not going to get into throwing out names on which manufacturer, but pretty much any jig right now that's labeled a pompano jig, 1/2 ounce, all the way up to even 3/4 ounce. Something in pink, orange, yellow, almost doesn't matter. All of them are going to catch fish right now. Just work them aggressively and cover water.
I like that,
Heck
man.
Yeah, man. That's a great tip. That's something I've definitely told people about speckled trout fishing. Man, just, get in, hammer out a handful of cast. If they're there, they're going to bite. If they don't bite, move on. Just run and gun.
Yep, exactly.
That's a great tip. I think that'll really help a lot of people go a long way, hopefully this next coming week. And hopefully, like we're talking about right behind this little front we're about to get, it's going to cool off just a hair and should hopefully prolong this bite for everybody.
It should. Now, it is like right now we're on, I think today, it's either today or yesterday was the full moon. Yeah, going by my logs, usually April, May, you always see a very big peak in the bite on the full moons in April and May on that spawn. So I think you're going to see maybe a little bit of a slowdown. I think the bite's going to stay good, but you might see a little slowdown over the next couple of days. But as long as the water temperatures stay in this range, we should still continue to have some good action on them. But I would definitely look at the full moon next month and anticipate that we're going to have another good spawning aggregate. So
awesome, man. Well, if people want to stop by there at Sam's Bait and Tackle and get the rundown, get a new pompano set up, get a new surf fishing set up, what's the best way to find you?
We don't have an actual store website, so You can either visit us on Facebook, Sam's Stop and Shop, and then, of course, call the store, 251-981-4245. Like I said, we are still open. We've kind of taken a little bit of measures to kind of, make sure people are being somewhat safe, spacing out. We're trying not to let any kind of big aggregations into the store.
Sure.
But if you want to come by the store, we're still open 7 days a week, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., 27122 Canal Road. So we're still here. If you want to come in and talk shop, we can do it. Don't be offended if I stay 6 feet away from you.
That's right. No doubt. Wear your mask. All right, Chris. We appreciate you being on, bud, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, desperate times call for desperate measures. If you can't fish from the beach, you got to figure out how to beach fish from somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Man, it sounds like Chris is really on to something down there on the beaches down there. Sounds like there's a lot going on the beaches right now. Spanish mackerel are thick. Ling are starting to show up. Pompano bite on fire. Heck, I haven't caught 150 pompano in my entire life, not much less than just 1 week.
I haven't caught 15 pompano in my whole life. Well, where are we headed next, man?
Man, let's go down and talk to my good friend, my tournament partner, mentor, Captain Bobby Abruscato. How you doing, Bobcat?
Man, I'm telling you what, I can't believe that 150 pompano. I'm like you guys, and I'm way older. I'm way older than both of you guys put together, and I ain't caught that many pompano in my life. I can tell you that. Good gracious alive. I'll tell you, that's a species of fish I wish I could get better at targeting because, when we catch them, Rich, I mean, it's a blast to catch them, but it's a bycatch for us. If you're out on the beach or fishing, the times I've caught them have been mainly fishing like up in the bay and rigs and where we're bait fishing with shrimp. Man, I just love to. Every time I catch one, I go, I got to get better at catching these. This is such a cool fish,
Yeah,
well, you need to listen to the show this week.
Yeah, you definitely need to listen to the show because, man, I tell you, what Vecsey was talking about really relate very well to what you and I do a lot with the speckled trout fishing, whole stick and move kind of thing. Get in an area you like that looks good, work a lure, move along, you know what I mean? Go find another little area.
They're catching all on jigs from the boat right now.
Yep, all artificial too.
Gosh. Oh yeah. Wow! Now you're really getting me fired up.
Oh yeah. What's been happening in your neck of the woods, man? You've been finding some fish?
Well, I'll tell you something. It's been fabulous since probably I was on here last. It's just continued to be great. I know the last time I was on here, we talked about how good it was getting. It's only gotten better. The numbers of trout that I'm catching are just through the roof. I mean, it's up 50 plus to triple digit days and being done by mid-morning. And I'm still fishing all artificial bait. It's been the deal. And today, Rich and I talked earlier, today was the worst conditions I've fished probably this spring. We had just an awful wind direction with a lot of wind in it. And by the way, I need to just throw this out real quick. The guys I had, father and son I had today, Steve Young and Colby Young, I told them, he said, regular listener of the podcast. So I told him I'm gonna plug you. If I do the podcast this week, I'll plug you. So I told him I'm gonna mention his name. But anyway, we fished today in some awful conditions. I told him last night, I said, guys, you don't want to go. It's gonna be southwest. We're on the full moon nip. I mean, it's really gonna be a tough day. And it's tough this time of year, Richard will tell you, to turn down a trip, but we threw it together and really had a good day. I mean, it was I told them I've had way worse days than this on what I thought were good conditions, and we had rotten conditions today. So if you're having good days on what I consider rotten conditions, that'll tell you how good it's been.
Yeah,
doing a lot of voodoo fishing and gulp fish. I'm fishing some gulp shrimp under popping corks and voodoos under popping corks because there's reds and trout mixed in some of the creek mouths and stuff. So I've been putting both of those on there. And yesterday, the trip I had, we caught the biggest trout that we caught all day. We're actually targeting reds, getting up in a foot and a half of water in some creek mouths with gulps under popping corks. And I told the guy I had yesterday, I said, man, this, I'm going to start doing this for trout now. I'm saying we're up there trying to catch redfish and catching our nicest trout in like literally, foot and a half of water. It's good enough to where you can go out and play around a little bit with your presentation and where you're fishing and still continue to catch fish.
On some of your better conditions days, when you don't have a bad wind direction or a lot of wind and stuff like you had to fish past day or so, are you doing anything other than fishing under a popping cork? A lot of people, kind of like to fuss about fishing under a popping cork. And I always tell people, and you can attest to this, being a fisherman for a living, I've made more money popping a cork than I've done anything in my entire life. So I don't know why anybody would do anything different, but what else have you been doing other than under a quart.
This time of year, that's the other thing that I'll always have tied on is a top water and a slick lure. And so if I get in a situation, and I'm doing air quotes here because people will go like, well, I want to target bigger fish. Well, you know what? We got a 26.5-inch trout Saturday on a voodoo under a popping cork at 10:30 in the morning after throwing top water all morning. So let me tell you something. You know, when they talk about that fishing that popping cork is not a big fish or a numbers type bait, and you and I have won redfish tournaments, a number of redfish tournaments fishing popping corks. I can tell you something. You ain't giving up nothing size-wise, especially in the spring and the fall.
That's right.
To directly answer your question, this time of year, I have a top water and a slick tied on a couple other lures too. And those work well. But like even yesterday, we tried throwing top water and we caught, I don't know if we caught a couple fish at the most in the first hour and a half. Switched over to popping corks and started catching, nice fish, and all of our nice fish came on it. So, but like you said, when I think about the popping cork, and you and I have done this in tournaments, is I think about it as in case of emergency, break glass and pull out the popping cork. Because if you have to catch fish, that thing's going to put some fish in the boat. I can't tell you this time of year, and in the fall, but this time of year especially, if you're in an area that, like some of the marsh areas right now where the fish are really relating more to shrimp, even glass minnows and that sort of thing, rather than bigger finfish type of baits like they do during the winter, you're going to catch your fish on that. And I know some people, just like Richard just said, they're going like, well, I don't want to throw a popping cork. Well, you know what? You sit there and watch us catch fish then, because that's just what works. Man, you start fishing those on spinning rods with fairly light braid and fast action rods. It's still a lot of fun to do it. It's still a lot of fun to do it. So
heck yeah.
It gets to a point to where if you want to catch fish, you sometimes you just have to do it. Heck, you've got the right you put the right tackle on there. And I'm not that crazy about fishing live bait under them, but I'll do it if I have to. But like this time of year when we're doing it all with artificial bait under them, shoot, I'm as good as anything, and it'll outfish anything 10-1 or more this time of year.
Yep, and it's fun too.
All right, cool. So we're gonna say hashtag popping cork. All right,
right.
Y'all tie them on. Huh?
I like that. That's like that. Yep.
All right. So you mentioned you've been catching fish around the creek mouths. Anything in the tidal rivers to speak of, or do you think the fish have moved out in the bay? Do you think the salinity's high enough for that yet?
I don't think, but bay, if you keep up with it, Barry just went under for the first time in probably 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
Just today went under flood. It's been in flood for 3 or 4 months. But when it gets under 7 feet, the lower end of the bay starts to clear up. The areas around the shoals and the bridge start to clear up. And like Rich and I did, back when Barry was still probably close to double digits, we went and fished some of the areas down towards the west end of Dolphin Island and caught trout. So, when this starts getting around where it's at right now, which is 6 feet or so, and it's dropping like a rock, by the way, some of that lower end of the bay gets good. And then some of the areas around the eastern shore up towards the maybe not quite as far up as Daphne, but like the Fairhope area. And then down the western side of the bay start to clear up quick. And those fish, I don't know if they're there all along or they're just in the deeper water, but they show up very quickly. Like the fish we caught down at the island a couple of weeks ago, they just show up quickly, So It's not going to be long before they're going to be out in the bay. As far as the tidal rivers go, I think there's resident fish, but I think some of those fish end up out in the bay. And so it's not going to be long that the fish that are moving in and out of those rivers start to completely move out of those rivers if Barry's continues to drop out the way it's doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Last time I saw
it's at 6 feet. The reading I saw this afternoon is about 6.3. So kind of got a light tide this week. It looks like I would expect it to really, really clean up, the water to start to really clean up. And kind of like you're saying, Bobcat, I think there's going to be fish are going to be showing up all over the place here before you know it. Yep. You know what I mean? It's going to be
all your favorite spots will be go-tos.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be full on. Let's see, I was thinking all my favorite spots were go-tos like 2 weeks ago. Now it's really going to get crazy with this getting this dirty water out of here,
That's been the thing that's really been the thorn in our side all winter is just how high the rivers have been. Because we can overcome anything except fresh water.
Right.
And that's what we've had to deal with. And right now, the upstate rivers are they're way, way, way below flood. And that's what influences of course, the bay. If we don't get any, I'm knocking on wood right here. I'm trying to find some wood tonight. If we don't get a bunch of rain upstate,
just use your head.
It's going to really, Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true. That's concrete. But if we don't get a bunch of upstate rain, man, this thing's going to shape up really good for, just about the time that the trout fishing normally gets really, really, and it's already been really good, but it's going to get really, really good here towards the end of this month and into early May.
That's awesome. Starting to fire me up a little bit, man. Last time I talked to you guys.
When have we ever had to try to get you fired up about fishing, man?
That's true. It's not that difficult. Last time I talked to both of you guys, we were talking slicks. You seeing any more of that slick action?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I did. I was showing the guys today, they were asking about that because they've listened to the podcast, and I was showing them what that looks like, and today we had some really nasty wind, and it's kind of interesting what happens with those. And I'm sure we've talked about this, but what happens is not just seeing them, is understanding where the fish are in relation to the slicks,
Certainly.
Like today we had really heavy winds, and we were fishing out in the wind, and when they got up, they get to the surface, they unshape, and they break up real fast, and they get blown away. So you have to understand, and then you get a day where you maybe have light winds, and they don't. They just pretty much sit right over about where the fish are, So you really have to understand not just what you're looking at, but where their fish are in relation to that. And if you start to understand that, that's how you start to catch them. And that's what was working today, is when we'd see fish slicks, we'd how to get set up on it. And of course, today it was one of those days, Richard, you know what I'm talking about, is when you're drifting a 15, 18 knot, and the slick always pops up current from you and about 90 degrees to the boat. So there's no way to make a cast with a popping cork. They never pop up right in front of the drift, So that's what was happening. I was going, there's a slick. If we were 150 yards up that way, we'd be lined up perfect with it, But anyway, the magic days are when you don't have a whole lot of wind, and they're a little bit in front of you, and you can get the boat lined up with them and start drifting into them.
Hey, Bobcat, you're going to laugh at me when I tell you this, but just a little earlier on the show, we were talking about how my crazy ass went offshore and caught a tuna in my bay boat. But while we were out there, man, I kind of started hitting on some stuff with my electronics. And sure enough, I was looking upwind, up current from us, and I was seeing slicks in 200 foot of water offshore, and was setting up on them. And that, that's kind of what got me on this one little drift line that I kept doing over and over and over again. And finally we hooked up a handful of times, and finally it hooked up and it stuck, and we got a good fish. But I promise you, I was seeing exactly what we see inshore on some of these flats with these trout. I was seeing offshore with these tuna, man, because we're in a big wad of boats. There's like 70 boats out there, and it wasn't like there was some boats upwind of me that were making slicks from their chum or anything like that. Right? No, it wasn't any of that. It was totally fish, and you could smell them just the same way you could inshore, man. It was pretty neat, man. And I say this all the time. All fish slick, man. All fish slick. They do, man. They start eating. That's what happens.
What were you doing? You were out there 200 feet of water, and you were digging through your locker for a popping cork? Is that what you were doing?
I bet that catch a tuna too. You know it.
Yeah, man. Congratulations on that fish. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
The guys that had on the boat with me today were talking about that. I said, yeah, that's when you know the trout bite's good, when my man abandons the trout bite to go catch a tuna in a bay boat.
That's right. Wild hair. He got a wild hair.
I did, man.
Yeah. He's got a bunch of them on his head, his face, and everything else.
In his head. I know.
Yeah.
All right, Captain Bob. You got the Hey Cap question this week, and this week's Hey Cap sponsor is Daycool Heating and Air. As the saying goes, if you don't like the weather in South Alabama, wait 10 minutes because it's going to change. But one of the things that is predictable is the pricing at Daycool Heating and Air. They offer flat rate pricing, and they don't charge for after-hours calls. Let's face it, your HVAC always seems to act up whenever you need it the most. Don't get stuck between a rock and a hot place because it is heating up out there. If you guys haven't noticed. Daycool offers flat $45 service calls, $59 tune-ups, and they offer free estimates on equipment replacement. The pros at Daycool have been serving Mobile and Baldwin counties for over a decade. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com or on the Daycool Heating and Air mobile app, license number AL07028. All right, Captain Bobby. This week's Hey Cap question comes from Lester Kirk. Lester Kirk asks, hey, Cap, is it true wind from the east fish bite the least in your experience?
Put your seatbelt on, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Well, I tell you this, that's the old fisherman saying, but we got to say it down in South Alabama, that if the wind from the east, the fish bite least. If the wind's from the west, they bite the worst, So
I've always heard west is the beast or something like that.
Yeah, it's terrible, man. I know, Butch, you the offshore guys, or from what I gather, the offshore guys like the west wind. Man, it is just a killer down at the lower end of the bay. So there's probably something to that. I don't know if those old timers came up with that, but man, it is exactly opposite down in South Alabama. And it could have a lot to do with water clarity, but I mean, when I see W in any forecast, whether it be southwest, which is what we had today, west, northwest, you can somewhat live with, but west, southwest is just a killer down there. And it's not, I don't know if it's so much that the fish don't bite, but it just destroys our water clarity. And if we're trout fishing, particularly where you got a fish that's an ambush feeder and really relies on a sense of sight to feed, that just kills the bite. Even the old timers, and I'm an old timer, and these are guys older than me, used to say they wouldn't even leave the house if it was blown out of the west or southwest, just because it would shut everything down, So I don't, so to answer his question directly, if they bite least, east is something with east in it is what I really like to fish, So I look forward to getting that. We get that a lot in the spring, by the way, is typically we get, unless it's pre-front, like where we're at right now, but typically we get a lot of east and southeast, northeast winds. That is to me, is where the fishing really gets good. And it's probably got as much to do with water clarity as anything else. But as far as trout fishing down in South Alabama, I have to totally disagree with that.
Yeah, we always said offshore. No. I remember what it is now. East is the beast and west is the best. That's what we used to say offshore.
Man, that's funny. That's funny because Cap, Bobby, and I, we seem to ask each other the same questions or thinking the same things a lot of times when it comes to what we're doing. And any time that we see that east anything, northeast, straight east, southeast, it don't matter how hard it's blowing. In one of those directions, there is a lot of doors that open up for us on an east wind, and I just get tickled when I see anything east. And when we see, and like we were talking about earlier, I always tell everybody anything west is the kiss of death. You know what I mean? Absolutely the kiss of death. Yeah. And I don't, and that's something Bobby and I talked about a lot together over the years. Is why is it that when it blows out of the west, and it doesn't even have to blow out of the west a whole lot, that the fish turn off or that the water gets extremely dirty. It could be blowing the same out of the east somewhere, and the water stays clean for some reason. It blows my mind. I don't know why. It's got to be something to do with that current in the Mississippi Sound and the wind direction, but that east wind opens so many doors, and a lot of people they believe that old timer story of the wind from the east, fish bite the least, and I jump up and down excited for an east wind.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got some guys, and I'm sure we got plenty of listeners on the eastern shore of Mobile Bay that are going like, yep, they're right. Yeah. You get west on that eastern shore of Mobile Bay, those guys go like, oh man, I don't even want to get out of bed, but it is nuts. I mean, and it can literally happen almost overnight, even in the places that normally hold clear water. It starts blowing double digits, west, southwest in the morning. By the time the morning comes around, everything's trashed,
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, Bobby, we appreciate that. Hey, Cap question. Lester Kirk is going to get a prize pack from the Slick Lure. Lester, make sure you email us at thebestfishingreport.com to redeem your Slick Lures. Y'all send us Hey Cap questions there, or follow our Facebook page and submit it that way to get in the running for the Slick Lure prize pack.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. How come the guy that answers the Hey Cap question doesn't get a prize pack too? I think we need to institute that. How come we can't get? I'm lobbying for some Slick Lures, man.
Take that up with Captain Landry. No, that's above my pay grade. We appreciate you, Captain Bobby. That's a great report, man. It's a great Hey Cap question, Lester. We appreciate that, and we'll talk to you soon, Captain Bobby. Keep whacking them.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man.
Always great to hear from the Marshal of Mississippi Sound, Captain Richard.
Man,
Wealth of knowledge,
my favorite.
All right, man. I never thought I'd be kind of grouping you with this group, but let's go talk down to offshore and Captain Dustin Bedgood. Maybe you guys can swap some notes on tuna killing. What you say, Captain Dustin?
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Man, we all right, buddy. Just trying
Pretty
to
good. We're just fed up, man. What you think?
yeah, I'm fed up too.
Hell yeah, man.
What you been up to, man? What you been doing? You been sword fishing, tuna fishing?
I've been chasing tuna still.
Seems to be the name of the game right now.
Swords. Everybody still got the tunas on their mind. They're seeing a lot of pictures of everybody else catching them, so they're still wanting to go after them. It's hard to talk somebody into sitting there sword fishing when, tuna bite's been good. But we tried to do some different stuff this week. Tried to go out and chase more of the numbers, not, those big fish at the lump. Spent a few days out of the floaters, fishing in some blue water. Not looking for those bigger grade of fish, but 30, 40 to 60 pound fish makes a lot of fun and on a lot lighter tackle. You can take some not so experienced fishermen out and let them catch those fish on lighter tackle.
Hang on a second. So you mean there's tuna out there that don't take 3 hours to catch?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. I was just checking.
Yeah, it's more of a 20-minute fight or a 20 or 30-minute fight on real light tackle. If you were using the same tackle that you're using at the lump, the 50 wide or the 30, it would be 10-minute fight. Not even that. Probably 5. But they're a lot of fun, and I had some ladies that went with us, and they enjoyed fighting those fish instead of being strapped into a belt for a long time fighting a big one. And it really gets everybody on the boat a little more. It gets them their own fish instead of everybody on the boat fighting one fish, which has been happening for the last few weeks. A lot of swapping it back and forth, just because everybody gets wore out from the fish. But I was ready for a change. I'd been to that lump so much, and I went on. I guess it was Thursday. I went to the lump, and it was a lot of action, kings and bonitas and everything. But we didn't, we saw some other boats catch some tunas, but we didn't catch one. And it was just a long day out there. The next day, I made the decision that I was not doing that again, and it paid off. I think we had 6 or 7 fish in an hour, and the customer actually got sick. And he said he told me he wanted to go in then, and we already had. I think we had 5 in the box, and I was sorry that he was sick, but I was definitely glad to go in and have an early day.
Yeah, for sure.
Get back at lunchtime.
It's interesting you say that about making a transition away from what I would call the inshore, closer in coastal stuff. It's typical of this springtime, catching these bigger fish in shallower, and then transitioning to the offshore side. Because one thing I noticed, of course, I've been out there twice in about the past 3 weeks. I noticed the bite cleaned up a lot at the. I could tell something was different at the horseshoe lump. We didn't get near the sharks or the bonita or the king mackerel or any of that kind of stuff out there. The bite has cleaned up a lot. Of course, we didn't get that many bites. Of course, the ones we got were really good. So, like you said, I think right now, if you want more action, things are moving out in the deeper water. If you want to still try to catch a giant, I think being on the closer in, shallower water is where you want to be. So just, no matter what you want to do right now, I believe.
Yeah, and they're catching a lot of blue marlin. It just seemed like every boat that went out of Orange Beach last week, they caught 1 or 2 blue marlins. A lot of tuna were caught and blue marlins. I didn't see any dolphin really yet, maybe a few small ones, but a lot of big fish being caught, offshore too. So, I had some friends catch a 190. On the troll, that's a big fish offshore. But the inshore bite's still been good. The problem I had is kind of like what you're saying. There wasn't a lot of bycatch bite, not a lot of bonitas and stuff. And the way I fish, I really need those bonitas to be able to chum, because I go through a couple flats of pogies real quick. And those fish have seen so many pogies. If you have the red meat, that's the big difference. And if you can't catch the bonitas out there, you need to provide. The one day that we had better success on the lump, we actually went offshore first, caught some smaller fish, and caught a bunch of black fins and some bonitas, and then we had something to actually chunk with, and didn't have to worry about running through pogies real quick and trying to catch bait. And it was a lot more successful that day.
You guys are going over to the east a little bit more in those stumps. I guess you're talking about the one straight south of Dauphin Island, a little bit deeper water.
Yeah, Yeah, that's right. It's a little deeper out there. It's off the side of the shelf. It's in, beautiful blue water. The lumps, some days you catch it, it's in blue water, but those rigs out there are really blue. I mean, the water's blue all the way into the shelf, and that's a different experience for the customer.
Pretty close in for right now.
Yeah, it's not that far. I know on Saturday, Petronas and all it was blue there. Sure, there was some yellowfin caught there. I didn't actually stop. I run a little bit further out and then cut over to the west and did a little deep dropping. I had also, it seemed like the grouper bite was really good the last 4 or 5 days. We spent a little bit of time and caught a snowy, and we caught some tile fish. That's really what we were trying to catch. But I had friends that really on Friday they caught, they had a boat limit of snowies, and so that's something awesome. We really like to do with the customers too.
Yeah.
I hadn't got into it much yet, but we're about to be there.
Yeah, I know we got a lot of listeners that do that too. Let's talk about that a little bit. Since we're there, you guys, you focusing in on like the mud flats and the mud holes, or you finding more rocks to be more productive?
It depends if you're looking for the, if you find a rock on the mud bottom, you can catch your groupers off of it, and then maybe catch your tile fish as you're dragging it up the hill a little bit. I like to find some, where it's going up on the ledge,
sure, and
drag my baits up that ledge to catch the tile fish. And I'm not a great grouper fisherman, but you can still be productive if you're drifting up the ridge, catching tile fish, and you catch a grouper. You just mark that spot and go back and hold up over it and catch the groupers until they quit biting, and then go back to drifting.
Live bait to deal with that?
Squid, cut pogies, red meat is one of my, I prefer red meat. Bonitas cut up, in chunks on chicken rigs. But I also like to mix it up, put a couple of different kinds of bait, run a couple of lines with lights and maybe one with not, and see what's getting bit. There's a certain light that's getting bit more, whether it's a strobe light versus just a regular glow stick. Sometimes that'll make the difference. You get everybody fishing the same way, you can really start catching them. It doesn't take long to, have a boat full of fish. I'm not that great at it, but some of these guys that are really good grouper fishermen, when you go deep dropping with them, you pull up to a spot, you make a drop, and you have 5 hooks, you bring 5 fish in.
Oh, yeah. 5
groupers at a time, so you're done quick. I wish I could say I do that all the time, but that's not the case.
That's all right.
And I think it's more boat control for those guys. They can hold it up really good over those spots.
For sure.
What do you think as far as water depth goes before you start playing with those lights and stuff that you get into?
I usually try a light anytime I'm fishing in, 400 foot of water or more. I may not start out with a light, but if I'm not getting bit the way I think I should, I'll go ahead and put a light on just to try it. And if I have 4 people fishing, I have one with a light, one without, and I'll swap it up. And if those fish all jump on one line, they're all fishing. Once they drop to the bottom, they're all going to be pretty close together. All the fish jump on one side of the boat on one certain set of baits, and to switch everything over to that.
For sure, that's the deal. Yeah.
There's some lights that I stay away from. Maybe for some reason I don't like the reds. I like the whites and blues and just a glowing green light. But you see people do all different kinds of stuff.
Never know what's going to happen when you go out that far.
That's right.
That's right.
Hey, so backing up a little bit, back to our tuna fishing and maybe just the offshore stuff instead of the deep dropping thing. When you're talking about getting away from the lump, because it sounds like the lump is kind of definitely a chunking deal right now, catching those big tunas. Is that what you're doing out around the rigs and stuff like that too? That are kind of like straight south of the island.
You can chunk out there and be very successful. Especially catching your bigger fish. If I like to go out there, and I always like to carry live bait with me. I like to catch cigar minnows or some speedy bait. I like a pogie, but by the time you catch a pogie and run 100 miles offshore, 80 miles offshore, he's not in the greatest condition. He's red-faced. He's been beat up. He's not swimming real fast. I like a more of a speedo bait, a cigar minnow or something. And I like to be able to catch them on a sabiki so I can de-hook them and not handle them and hurt the bait. Try to take real good care of them when you sabiki them. And, I like to catch a bunch of them. I like to catch 100, 150 or more. So if I want to catch 5 or 6 fish, I have 10 or 15 baits that I can throw out and live chum with. before I throw my hooked baits out to get those fish feeding. If I have 50 baits and I pull up and I throw 15 of them in the water, my customers are looking at me like I'm crazy for throwing,
good bait.
10th of our bait away,
Yeah.
just to see if I can get the fish to come up on the screen. But if you throw 10 baits out and they start coming up and eating them, and you just continue to feed them, it's not going to be long, and you're going to have several tunas in the boat. You can get to doing that, and there'll be some really big fish that come up and eat too. So
for sure, I saw a couple guys that did pretty well on a kite. That's what I like, man. I love putting that kite up. There's nothing like a kite big tuna, man. I love it.
Yeah, I really like it, but that is, you have to have some experience on the boat with you.
For sure, you gotta have some to work.
Your deckhand has to be fairly experienced with flying that kite. And there's some people in our Bill's staff. Every time I see him offshore, he's flying the kite. He's very successful with it. I'm not that good. We do it some, but it's a lot to do. To run the boat, fly the kite, and manage the rods. But sometimes it's the difference.
Yep.
Sometimes you can really get bit on it. And what's good about the kite is you can use as heavy a tackle as you want because the bait's out of the water and they eat it.
Yeah,
sure.
I think you hit the nail on the head when the kite subject came up. You said experience on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Because the experience on the boat is you as the captain, and I think with a kite, you had the positioning of the boat is very, very, very important. You know what I mean? You can't be drifting around all over the place. You got to be able to stay held up right in the same place, and be kind of doing your thing before you're going to get a bite on a kite like that, because
you got to have a couple guys working the kite, one guy working the rod, one guy working the kite.
And if I carry a group of my friends out there, of course, we can put the kite out, and they can manage the rods and the kite rod. We usually keep it on. We usually put it on a Tanacom, so it's electric, so it's easy to retrieve the kite. But you still have to have somebody there managing those reels to keep the baits just on the surface, because if they're down 3 or 4 foot under the water, I think you're defeating the purpose of
100% agree.
Kite.
Yep. There's definitely an art to it. I gotten pretty good at it. Me and Skipper on the Escape, we can smash them. I love it.
Yeah, it's definitely effective.
Yeah, for sure. Well, man, that's a great report. We got to get that offshore tip from you. This week's offshore tip is brought to us by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. A great way to support conservation projects like the Quad Petite Flounder and Speckled Trout Hatchery in the University of South Alabama Cobia Tagging Project is the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama Saltwater Fishing license plate. Just head over to Alabama Department of Revenue's distinctive license plate page at revenue.alabama.gov to get yours. What you think for an offshore tip this week, Captain Dustin?
My tip this week is, if you want to go out to the floaters and have the best chance to catch fish, is spend your time inshore once it gets daylight. Catch as much bait as you can. I mean, you never want to run out of bait, but catch you 100, 150 of those cigar minnows and keep them real fresh and take them out there. Even if you feel like you're running late, you can go ahead and spend that extra time and get them, because if you get out there and don't have them, you're going to wish you did, when you could have just spent that extra 20 or 30 minutes catching them and taking care of them. Don't be unhooking them with your hand. Make sure you use the de-hooker, drop them straight in the water, and don't handle them a lot. Keep those baits good and speedy.
That's a great tip, man. I love those. I don't know, I think they're called Spanish sardines is their actual real name. Those greenbacks, we call them tuna crack.
Oh, yeah. And, you'll catch the sardines, and they're more of there's a couple of different fish you catch. You catch some that are more of a scaly, round scale fish. They're not as hardy as those cigar minnows. Those cigar minnows, we can take them out there for a couple of days, and they'll still be swimming good in the live well. And we'll put them in a pen when we get back and carry them a couple of days. Most anything else we carry dies. The hardtails will live, but other than that, everything else. Even if it's not dead, and you pull up to a rig and you throw him out and he's half swimming on his side,
that's no good.
It is no good. If the bite is not just going off, you can just hang it up.
Hey,
just use him for a chunk bait.
Hey, Dustin, on your live well systems, are you guys use anything like these Venturi systems and stuff like that to blow the bubbles into your live well and whatnot and keep them even more lively than, there's a zillion different tricks you can do on your live well, like whether you put like a bubble machine in there that's blowing bubbles. That's what all of us inshore guys do with our shrimp and croakers and stuff like that. But some of these guys I see going offshore will put these Venturi systems in there where it's sucking air in. as you're blowing raw water into your live wells, it makes these beautiful bubbles inside. You doing any of that?
We're running a sea chest on everything. You always have plenty of flow to your fish. I have aerator on both boats. We have aerators that we can turn on, but really only use that if we're using a floor box or if we're carrying pogies. We'll put the water, when we catch those fish, we'll put that water in and just keep recirculating and aerating it instead of putting that higher salinity water on them and killing them. But most of the time, we're just running the sea chest. Just putting a lot of flow over them.
Okay. So like with your sardines and your cigar minnows and stuff like that, you're running raw water over them versus like
that's right.
with pogies, you're trying to maintain that salinity that you caught them in. That's
right.
Yeah, that's a good trick right there, man. I think a lot of people probably wonder why they run way offshore with a bunch of live pogies and they're dead as hammers when they get way out there.
Yep, that's a great tip.
Yeah, I think they just get out there in that higher salinity water and it just it chokes them.
All right, sure. That's not where they're from.
If you can keep that boat, if you can keep that same water in there recirculating, I think you'll have better success.
Sweet,
awesome, man. Yep, that's a great report. We appreciate it, Captain Dustin. If somebody wants to book a trip with you on your boat, or I know you do some stuff where you take people on their boats. What's the best way to get in contact with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is 251-377-7135 or at fedupcharters.com.
Richard and I were just talking. He wants to catch a swordfish on his 25-foot contender next. So we might have to.
Oh yeah, he's got it. He can do it. If he what he did, by going to the lump, I think it's much easier to make that trip to catch the swordfish.
I might have to be involved.
He can do it for sure. Yeah, once he tries it a couple of times, it won't take him long to figure it out. A fishy person will figure it out pretty quick.
Sweet, man. All right, Captain Dustin, we appreciate the report as always, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, man. We got to wrap this thing up with what did you learn today? And this week's What Did You Learn Today is brought to us by Advanced Transmission. Towing a boat is an important part of having a great day on the water for many anglers. Are you sure your transmission is up to the task? Get your transmission checked out and serviced before you tow your boat this season at Advanced Transmission in Spanish Fort, Alabama. They install external transmission coolage for those who engage in regular towing to keep the most expensive and complicated part of your vehicle running smoothly. Advanced Transmission has well over 300 certified customer reviews with a 97.8% satisfaction rating, so they'll take care of you. Give them a call at 251-626-6061 or check them out online at www.advanced-transmission.com. Be sure to tell them you heard them on the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report for a 10% discount.
Man,
great show this week.
For sure. Golly. What was your favorite part there, Butch?
Man, I just kind of stepping out of comfort zones kind of deal. I think smashing the pompano from a boat is a pretty cool deal, man. Vecsey really was very in depth on that. And like I said, I think it was 3 weeks ago, we had a gentleman that asked us a Hey Cap question about catching pompano from the boat. So I hope he likes that segment. Hopefully it helps him out. I know you and Bobby were talking about, it's just not something that we do from a boat very often.
No,
to hear somebody analyze that and be scientific about it and tell you how to set up and what to catch, that's kind of a game changer, especially right now in the predicament that we're in.
For sure. I'll say my experience with the pompano has been, usually when I catch one, I usually catch 3 or 4 or 5. I mean, and 5 is that's like an epic slapping high fives, kind of one of these crazy things like you caught a unicorn or something when you catch 4 or 5 of them, but it usually is very quick. Bam, 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 bam. And it's exactly what Chris was talking about. You get in some areas that look good, hammer out a couple of really good casts. And Patrick's talked about this in the past with something that I want to say Mike Iaconelli's talked about in some of his podcasts and stuff. You get in a good area that looks fishy, hammer out 10 good solid casts. If you don't get a bite, move on. You know what I mean? That sounds like exactly what Chris is talking about. Yep. Get in a good little area where you see 2 sandbars that meet up and there's a little washout between there. Fan cast all around that whole area. Don't get a bite. Boom, moving, going. We're going
Stick to find move.
That's it. And man, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So
What'd you learn?
Man, I tell you what I learned is just listening to everybody talk, and the little bit I've experienced here lately is, man, it's time to go fishing. It's springtime. Yep. There's a lot of different species out there to go catch, and you're never going to know what you're going to bump into until you go. So yep. I would just say go fishing.
Get your bait right. It sounds like get your ideal bait. Take time. If it takes you a little longer and you get a little annoyed, well, yep. It's going to be worth the time you miss fishing to have that good bait. I guarantee.
That's it. Yep. And I experienced that when I went on my my offshore adventure. Dustin's talking about that as well.
Offshore adventure. I love that.
Dustin's talking about that with catching his live bait when he's doing his deal with the floaters.
Yep.
And then Captain Bobby being the shallow water stuff, catching speckled trout. He's doing all his stuff on artificial. And so is Chris, so I just think the fish are on the chew right now. We're coming off this full moon, which definitely usually is the start of spring, April full moon. It's an exciting time right now.
It is, man. Everything's kind of firing off. I'm excited. Need to get out there and catch something for sure.
Man, hopefully you folks out there this week will put it to good use.
Get out there. Let's go catch something. Tug is the drug.
Tug is a drug.
All right, folks. That's going to wrap it up this week. You guys, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. Also, we'd love for you guys to go on iTunes. You go on iTunes, go to our show, and you scroll down and leave us a review. That helps a lot on our iTunes rankings. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you guys soon. You guys keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by the Alabama Fishing Rodeo. The funnest fishing tournament on the Gulf Coast is June 12th through the 14th. Go to fishfloribama.com for tickets and more details.
And also KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com.
Also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-973-9999. Also brought to you by Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea temps, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at hiltonsoffshore.com. Also brought to you by MDH Foundation Repair. If your home was experiencing foundation problems, MDH Foundation Repair has the best solutions to fix it right and fix it now and protect your most important asset, your home. Check them out at mdhfoundationrepair.com.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com.